This video is sponsored by My Metal Cards at Etsy.com. So yes, this is a new upcoming shop which specializes in selling like a lot of metal cards, so hence the name. So it ranges and specializes in like a lot of games such as Combat Vanguard, MTG, and Warhammer. So in this case, if you see here for Vanguard, they have energy counters for every nation. There's also like treasure tokens for MTG. There's also like plenty other designs for Vanguard, such as like fated ones. There's also like nation ones, and also it comes with acrylic ones. It's more transparent acrylic ones, so that's pretty cool. If you want to get one of these, that's also nice. And also there's plenty of other designs which are not in this shop, but you can custom pre-order them. You can like order them customly, such as like my Chronojet black and white energy counter, which is like 0 to 10. There's also like black and white like nation cards such as like Brungate, which I have over here, and also like they have like IoT energy like energy markers, energy counters, which I have like all three, like bronze, silver, gold respectively. So that's about it. And also, if you go to this shop and have the code coupon code Enochsays, 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 you get $5 off for your first purchase of one of these metal cards as well. So Enochsays, ENOCHSAYS, for $5 off for your first purchase. And do check them out. There's plenty of designs, and you can use them to spicify your deck, so make it bling, make it fancy. Do keep in mind that since these are custom-made energy markers or whatsoever, counters or whatsoever, you cannot use them in like official Bushiroad tournaments, but you can use them as a form of like collection or whatsoever. And there you go. Just pick one of these up, and hopefully you like them. I like it personally, so do give them the support. And that's about it. I'll see you in the next video.
Hello everyone, it's Professor 095 back with a deck profile. So this time around we'll be doing Sacrifice Glass. So so this time around we have this is going to be the new rideline from DZ-BT03. So which means this is it's a Dark States new rideline. Because I'm playing Dark States. If you guys already if you guys can't figure that out already. So I would say like right now, Sacrifice Glass is technically one of my few enjoyable decks that I've been playing a lot lately, aside from Lucreer. So it has a very fun deck. It's very interesting in one way more than the other. It's because technically speaking, let's go to some of the discussions with this deck in particular, right? Sacrifice Glass is not a huge super good meta deck. It's tier 2 at best, but even then this deck can do a lot of like late game shenanigans. You can technically like play stalling as well as much as draw power as well as draw power. So this deck has a really abundant draw engine, which is kind of nice as well. But it's also kind of like, at the same time, like Sacrifice Glass is also a twin edge sword deck, right? Sometimes it kind of like advantages you, but it also advantages your opponent. At the same time, it's also like disadvantage like yourself and also disadvantage your opponent in certain situations, right? But then again, it is definitely one of the few decks that I can definitely watch for to play. And not to mention that this deck is technically like very fun to play with. Like not fun, like very cheap to build, provided if you don't go for the very maximum extra build. But this time around, for the purpose of this deck profile, I'm just gonna like play the best case scenario of like how can you maximize I would say the potential of this deck. How far can this deck actually go? So this is just like my own personal take on like how do I want to play this deck in one way or another, right? But not to mention that because this deck is actually like very technical is, I would say that it's because you have it has a very nice gimmick of like spear riding and all that stuff. So yes, this is technically like Luhan in that particular sense. So yes, what else can I say? Yeah, I think that's more that's all I can say for this deck for the time being. But before we get straight into the deck profile per se, if you do like what I'm doing in this channel, if you do like this deck profile, I also do unboxings and other fight videos. So if you want to stay tuned for more, please do hit like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more things to come. So this is probably going to be a very long deck profile, so please bear in mind you might be sleeping and dozing off, but then again you can skip probably some segments to it. In this deck profile, I'm just going to like explain to my list as well as my justifications as to why, and also like I'm going to offer you some alternatives as well. So yeah, so also one thing I also mentioned, one thing I forgot, is that like Sacrifice Glass is also vulnerable to control decks. So like decks like Shoujo Doji is like probably the most dangerous ones, because like Grand Dogma has to bind. So any cards that is in the bind zone, they can actually like go to the drop zone or go to the bot deck, which severely limits the ability of them to restand or to retire. Then also like if you face against deck that mass retires as well, it also kind of have a very low attacking engine and attacking power. So that's how this deck is supposed to be, but oh well, it is what it is. Not every deck can be super meta. Not every deck can be consistent I wouldn't say not consistent per se, but like sometimes when you're fighting against decks like Dragon Empire, sometimes it's very hard to keep up for counter offense, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. But then again, we'll go straight into the deck profile. So before we go straight into the Grade 0 per se. The Grade 0 skill, the Grade 0's name is Rarara Pokoko, so which is a very funny, cute name. Generate D starter skill, when this card is being rolled upon, you get to draw one, so that's it. And then for the Grade 1, we have a Hop Pop, alright? So Hop Pop skill is that like, the skill is that at the beginning of Auto Vanguard skill, when this unit is at the beginning of your right phase, you can write Sheffy, which is the Grade 2, and you can from your right deck, and you can write it for free essentially, without discarding anything. If you did write, then both players, you and your opponent, get to draw one, and if you wrote in this way, you cannot write anything else, right? So that's one thing for sure. Alternatively speaking, there's also another playstyle which I've seen people play, is that they can play the Bruce Steve rideline. Is that when this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, you can choose one card from your soul, call it to the center back row Rearguard Circle, and you get to soul charge one, right? The reason why in this case is because let's say in situations, let me adjust my camera for a bit. In situations where you go second, you write on this card, and then you get to call it the starter to the back row circle, and then you get to soul charge one, and then you can swing. And assuming that if my opponent is 8k, 15k will not be enough, because this is swinging for 14k, right? So that's technically like 14k to 23. Is going to be technically like 1 to pass, right? So it's either you want pass them or force them to like take a damage, right? So it's very crucial to whether to decide whether you want to go first or go second. But usually this is a go second build. But for me personally speaking, I prefer to go first. I think there's several reasons to this, because number one, you get to do 4 attacks first. I think that is like very important as well. But not to mention that if I get to go if I get to go first, there's more chances of me like having a much more better draw engine too. So that's also like very nice. But then again, like if I go, this is mostly a go first build. But yeah, then again, I prefer to go first. So that's one part of it. The Grade 2 we'll be looking through is Sheffy. So Sheffy skill, if I can focus a bit. When this unit is rolled by Sacrifice Glass, Soul Blast 1, search your deck for Sweet Bait, which is the order for this deck, the key order for this deck. Add it to your hand, then you shuffle your deck. And the second skill is that auto, when this unit is placed on rear, you can choose a face-up Grand Dogma, Grade 3 or greater Grand Dogma from your damage zone, put it to your hand, and if you do, you choose one card from your hand and move it to your damage zone. Honestly speaking, I only play one in the right line. I didn't play one in the main deck. It's because there's very few circumstances or few chances, a few instances where Grand Dogma ended up in that damage zone. There is, but usually I can manage to heal, if I can heal them most of the time. But not to mention that I don't think there's much of a necessary for you to technically damage unless you damage the Grand Dogma unless you're extremely unlucky when that happens. But then again, if you want to play this, I think in the main deck, I think you can play at least one or two. I think that's still okay. But for me, I just play one in the right line and only one in the whole deck per se, which is fine. So that's easy for me to search the orders and yada yada. This is going to be the next right line for the grade 3 is Sacrifice Glass. So Sacrifice Glass skill is really important and really fun. And if I can focus a bit on my camera, please focus on, come on, please focus. Okay, something's not right. Okay, anyways, let me explain the skill first, right? So the first skill is that Auto Vanguard skill, when this unit is at the beginning of your main phase, right? During your turn, you, the player, gets, when your opponent's unit is being retired from either the rear guard or from the Guardian Circle, you get to energy charge 1. Which is cool gimmick, which is a kind of a cool gimmick because you don't technically you don't really run out of energies per se, but it's also very important because of the second skill is that Auto Vanguard skill at the end of the battle that this unit attack, you energy blast 4, search your deck can or drop for up to 1 Grand Dogma and write it as stand, and during this turn plus 15k and drive -2, and if you search your deck, you shuffle your deck, and if you write it, then your opponent may get to draw, you can choose to draw 1, okay? So that's how it is supposed to be. So this whole deck is technically operates like Luhan per se. Luhan is the it's like the captain version of this deck where you can spear right from the deck as well. But the best part about it is that the Grand Dogma, it can be either from your hand or from your drop or from the deck, which is kind of nice because if you search your deck first, you can get to filter a bit. If it ended up in your hand, you can always spear right from your hand. If it ended up in the drop zone, you can always spear right from the drop zone, which is kind of nice, right? So that's how it's supposed to be. But then again, it also operates in the fact that let's say when you can retire, thanks to the grade 2 support, which is Mushi or Muji. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's pronounced as Mushi. So when Sacrifice Class attack, if as long as the grade 2 is here, you get to retire 1. So if that's S2, you get to retire 2, which means that you get to EB2 at this not EB2, you get EC2. You can energy charge 2 at the same time, so which is kind of nice. So that's great. So that's the whole right line for the time being. Moving on to the main deck, of course, is going to be Sacrifice Glass, so 3 of the Persona rights. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't have to explain much. But of course, the huge gimmick revolves around this card, which is Manifest Great Horizon Grand Dogma. So Grand Dogma skill, the first skill is that when this card is be bind other than the same card name effect, other than herself, this card has to go to the drop zone. So essentially speaking, let's say if this card is on the rear guard circle, and let's say for whatever purposes that your opponent tries to bind it, instead of going to the bind zone, it goes to the drop zone instead. Or let's say, for example, you go, if it's in your hand and your opponent forces you to bind from hand, instead of going to the bind zone, you go to the drop zone, right? So that's how it's supposed to be. Usually it's because when this happens, decks like Emma or Shoujodoji, you can just technically be regarded as a discarding. So I think that's fine. But you also can discard this for the right line, for riding up, because since you can spear right from drop zone, you can always do that. Just to mention for a bit. But the second skill is that act Vanguard once per turn. At the end of the battle that this unit attack, you choose one of your opponent's rear guard and get to retire 1. If your bind zone has 1 or more same name as this unit, you also get to retire 1, which means that you get to retire 2. And if it's 2 or more, you get to restand this unit, so which is pretty fun. So this is going to be a restander. So the third skill is that Auto Vanguard, at the end of the battle, if your bind zone has 1 or less with the same name as this card, choose Sacrifice Glass from your soul and write it as rest, and during this turn, and if you rolled with this effect, by this effect, you get to bind this card into the, you get to bind this card, right? So for those of you who are very confused on what this deck does, like just to give you a radio crash course on how it does. So technically speaking, now you have rolled into Sacrifice Glass. So beginning of the main phase, anytime that your opponent guarded, since like a guarded, like say the Guardians leave the field, or when I retire one of their rear guards, I get to energy charge one. So how this works is that, let's say I swing for 13k. So at the end of a battle, I energy blast 4 and I get to Spear Right, Grand Dogma. And then I can get plus 15k, so this is going to be like 28k with drive -2. And if I have, let's say, I swing at the end of the battle, I can just do 1 card to retire. And yeah, which means I can energy charge 1. So let's say, for example, if I have 1 already in the previous turn, I swing again, I have end of battle, I have retired 1, which means I energy charge 1. I have 1 already in the bind zone, I get to retire 1, which means that I get to energy charge 1 more. Right? So in this particular turn, you get to energy charge 2, so which is nice. So in the next turn, you can do it again. You can swing and then you twin drive and then you Spear Right again. You swing and then since you have retired, you have end of battle, EOB, retire 1. 1 or more, retire another 1. 2 or more, you get to restand. However, since that you Spear Rope and drive -2, even if you restand, you don't get to have the drive check, but you can get to swing again. However, since you already have 2 or more, not 1 or less, this is going to be like your new Vanguard from here on out, unless you want to write back to Sacrifice Glass, but I don't see the reason why you want to do that. So Grand Dogma is technically like your new Vanguard, right? So it's usually like happens after like past turn 5 and past turn 5, turn 6 or something along those lines, right? So after that, when you stand and draw again, and if you have a Persona Road, just do it right again. So you don't get the plus 15k, but since you have Persona Road, it's going to swing for 23. And since you're not Superior Riding by Sacrifice Glass effect, you don't get to lose drive, which means that you get to twin drive, and then end of battle, retire 1. You have 1 more card, retire 1, and then you can get to restand, and then you get to swing again, which means that you get to twin drive, again. So which is kind of nice. So that's how this deck works, right? That's how this deck operates. So yes, definitely, because this is the huge important gimmick, you have to play 4 of this and the 3 of the Sacrifice Glass as the not superiority, personal riding. One thing for sure, because of that, there's also the important part of this deck, which is Sweet Bait, which is also your draw engine and also prevent your opponent to do stuff. So Sweet Bait, I only play 3. You listen to my reasoning later why I don't play 4. Mostly because there's shoot value issues, but there's also another reason to that, right? So the skill is that you counterblast 1 to play this order, and depending on what's your Vanguard, you do some of the following abilities. If your Vanguard is Sacrifice Glass, during your turn, your opponent gets all of the rear guards and their cards in their drop zone, loses all continuous and auto ability, and cannot move to rear guard circle, cannot move to guardian circle from the rear guard circle. And also your opponent has to call 3 units, exactly 3, no more, no less, unit cards from their drop zone and call it to open rear guard circles. And for every 3 of you and your opponent's rear guards, you get to draw 1. So let's say, for example, if I have 8, let's say, for example, if the whole field has 8 rear guards, I get to draw 3, right? No, is it 1, 2? If the entire board has 9, I get to draw 3. If the entire board has 6 rear guards, I get to draw 2. If the whole board has 3, I get to draw 1. So this is where Sacrifice Glasses draw engine comes from. So this is what I meant by that is that it's kind of like twin-edged sword at the time. You get to draw, which is true, but in the process you draw into you can draw into your key pieces, but there's also the increased potential of saying draw into your triggers, which means that you don't sack your triggers as often. But the most important part is that your opponent's rear guard circle cannot do anything. They cannot have intercepts, they cannot move to guardian circles by any effects. So let's say, for example, hostage decks in general, like hostage Rezel or like hostage Zoga or whatsoever, just kind of like F them over, kind of screws them over with this effect. So of course it's going to be the very fun part about the whole order in general. Which means that retiring is going to be made easy, because since, let's say for example, there are cards that has like a continuous resist ability, they lose that resist ability, making Sacrifice Glass and Muji to easier to get the retire and whatnot, right? So that's one. Alright, so if you're continuing on, if your Vanguard is Grand Dogma, if you did not Persona roll during this turn, you activate Persona, right? And from your drop zone, you return different grades from 0 to any number of different grades, right? Like 0, 1, 2, 3 or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 or something along those lines, right? 0 to 3, and return to your deck, and then you shuffle your deck. So this helps you to prevent your deck out, but also like having to ensure that your triggers, you still can check the triggers, but mind you, you cannot return heals, nor you can return over triggers, so it will be very broken if you do so, right? So you can only return criticals or draws and fronts only with this effect. So yes, that's technically what it does. So you don't have to worry about like the draw engine, because like after like you have like Grand Dogma after this, you can always like shuffle back your like some of your cards back to your deck, so preventing your deck out. So that's what it does. So that's all my grade 3s. So for my grade 2s, if I can search for my grade 2s for a bit, let me let me search for my grade 2s and whatnot. So I think this is going to be like very important for me to like do this. Okay, now for the first grade 2, obviously you have to play Muji. So Muji's skill is the key grade 2 for this whole deck in general. So the skill is that in the front row rear guard circle only happens on the front row rear guard circle. If I can focus for a bit, if your Vanguard, if your Sacrifice Glass Vanguard attacks, you can get to choose one of your opponent's rear guard and you get to retire. So let's say if there's 2 of them in the front row, you get to retire 2 when Sacrifice Glass attack, which is cool. But the second skill is that like when Grand Dogma attacks, when your Grand Dogma attacks this unit plus 10k, and the effect is not technically once per turn, so you can stack. So by the time that when Grand Dogma has the ability to restand, this thing can go for 30k, or this is a 30k bit stick already, so which is kind of nice, right? So yeah, you can swing for like 30k and whatnot, right? So which is cool. Retire and also get the power buff. So of course it's going to be 4 off without any questions at all. The next one is Orient. So Orient's skill is also self-explanatory. Since I play normal orders on a very consistent basis, you have to play this. The skill is that when this unit is placed on rear guard circle other than a unit card's ability, so you can call from hand or call from order. If you play an order card, you can Soul Blast 1, look top 5, choose up to 1 unit card to call it out, which is the same grade or less than your Vanguard, or you can bounce back an order card, put back to your hand, and then you shuffle your deck. And then the second skill is that auto rear guard skill. When this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater, not energy blast, sorry, Soul Blast 3, draw 1, and this unit plus 5k until the end of turn, right? During this turn. Okay, so the thing is that with Orients is that like, since I play Sweet Bait, obviously, I can call Orients out. Soul Blast, I can definitely try to filter out my deck for like for either look for another Sweet Bait or any other normal unit, or I can just a normal order, or I can just call on like normal units for like say attackers or boosters as well. So which is rather important for this deck, but I think like 2 is enough. Mostly because like this deck doesn't really utilize a lot of soul, even though like you have some souls to spare. But of course, the second skill is definitely you're not gonna use the second skill because Sacrifice Glass does not have much soul to use with. So this is the only time that I ever used the soul, so I play 2. Next, we play 4 Tishkal. I play 4 Tishkals, and the skill is that when this unit is discarded from your hand or placed on the Guardian, placed on Guardian Circle or discarded from your hand during your right phase, you either CB1 or Energy Blast 3 to get to draw 1, which is nice. The second skill is that when this unit is retired from the Guardian Circle, if you Persona rolled during this turn, you either Counter Blast 1 or Energy Blast 3 to you may Soul Charge 1, and during this turn this unit gets boost and plus 5k, which is kind of nice, right? Because the biggest problem with sometimes with this deck, I would say, is the boosting power. even though Muji can swing for like medium numbers, you realize that Muji doesn't really hit for huge numbers on early game, for like 20k guard, right? Which means it's only like a one-hand guard. But let's say, for example, if you persona during this turn, and let's say, for example, Muji can swing for 30, you can already guard for two-hand guard. But why stop there when you can actually like force your opponent to like guard with more, right? So on a persona turn, let's say like for example, Grand Dogma swings for like 2 times. So on a persona turn, 20, 30, 40, 50, 55, right? 55 is a huge number, so of course, definitely, you have to force your opponent to guard with more. But not to mention that you can, since you have a lot of energy blast to spare, you can have a lot of energy to spare with. You can always use the energy blast to get to draw one. But the counter blast one is a little bit iffy, because like the longer you play, it's also important to note that the longer you play, you drag out, you realize that you don't have any counter charges, and most of your counter blast is mostly allocated on sweet bait. So you just have to be very careful on when do you use your counter blast and when do you use your energy blast. I'm just trying to say this as a matter of fact, right? So 4 Tishkals, I think that's self-explanatory. I think that's fine. Moving on to the next great ones for now is going to be 3 PGs and 1 Elementaria Sanctitude. I think this is anti-triple drive, so anti-strike decks, anti-Drudgeroll, or anti-Jiva, Nirvana Jiva that gives, like if you have Stora Arena that gives a triple drive. So this is more practical than the this Elementaria, right? It's much more useful than this Elementaria, because if let's say opponent has a triple drive in the innate triple drive ability, you don't have to discard anything, but this one you have to discard because this one has to say that your opponent plays a different crest other than energy generator, right? So if they have any other crest other than energy generator, so I think this one is self-explanatory. 4 PGs and like 3 PGs and 1 Blitz Order, right? After that, wait, what's the next great one? Sorry, my bad. My next great one is technically, let's go with this one now. It's Patem. So Patem skill is that when this unit is on a continuous effect, when this if you play an order card during this turn, this unit plus 5k. So essentially you can swing for like a 13k booster, right? So this is going to be a 13k booster, which is nice. But the second skill that is not really relevant because it's on rearguard plays, you CB1 search your rare card for something else, the other order, which is not the sweet bait, right? And you add it to your hand and then you shuffle your deck. But that's not the whole point of me playing the second skill. The reason for me to play that is to play the first skill, which is a 13k booster. And you can, I'll explain why when I get to the demonstrations after that. After that, we played for the 4 dragons. This is called Madura. It's technically not a dragon; it's the beast. Okay, yeah. The skill is that act rearguard once per turn. Soul Blast 1, you discard 1 card from your hand. You can you choose a sweet bait from your drop zone, and during this turn, when it gets the effect that when you will play this order card in, you can play this card from the drop zone, and instead of like playing to the drop zone, you can move it to the bottom of your deck, which is nice, which means that you get to recycle some of your sweet baits, which is why like I put sweet bait at 3, because like in terms like when you don't get to have a sweet bait in your hand, but you have it in your drop zone, Madura can help you to use the Soul Blast 1, discard 1, and you can play the order card to play the order, which is kind of nice. And the second skill is that at the end of the turn, on the rearguard circle, you get to energy plus 5 and get to draw 1. So since, like I mentioned earlier, this deck has a lot of energy to spare, you can definitely energy plus 5 to draw 1. But if you don't want to draw 1, I think it's fine. If you want to spare your energy, like you want to conserve your energy on somewhere else, you can, for like Tishkals, like say if your defenses are not very enough, I think you can do that. But yeah, I think like and this is a confirm 4 off. I don't think you will play anything else. But the next great one I'm playing is 4 color. So 4 color is really nice. So 4 color is the skill is that when this unit is placed on rearguard circle from your hand, you get to energy charge 1. And the second skill is that rearguard circle at the end of the battle that this unit boosted. If you have energy blasted 3 or more at the same time for your card's ability, you get to retire herself, and you get to retire yourself, you get to draw 1. So and essentially it's also like a very nice draw engine. as well, and also have a form of like energy charges too. So which is nice. If you don't have energy enough to say like energy charge, which I don't see there's any time that you ever lack of energy, but if you do lack energy, this can definitely help you to energy charge. But also it's like the retire itself and get to draw 1 is also good because of the draw engine. I think like playing 3 is okay, but if you want to play 4, it's nice. The reason why I play 3 is because it's already a good draw engine and an energy charge engine, but Sweet Bait allows me to draw a lot of cards already. So I think like for color play at 3, I think it doesn't really hurt. It doesn't really hurt to play at 3. And what are other great ones? Okay, no, I think that's it for the time being. For the next for next triggers, 8 crits, self-explanatory. I don't play effect crits. I don't think you need to play effect crits in this deck. There's no point for you to play Soul unless you're playing Orients. But you know, it is what it is. 8 crits, 3 fronts. Yeah, don't play draws obviously because you're going to draw a lot. Do not play draws. 4 heals. You can play the 1 anti-crit and 1 anti-restand, but I play like since this is a Shiranu meta, I play 1 anti-restand. So this is going to be fine. And then 1 Dark States OT. So I play the Dark States OT self-explanatory because since this is a deck that superior rights and have restands, you might as well just swing for like 28k, 38k, 48k with double crit, right? So yes, you know, 23k or 28 or something along those lines. Double crit is going to be a high pressure for them, so force them to guard more, force them to PG and guard more, which means that allows you to energy charge more, right? I think that's how I think like that's my justification as to why I'm playing that. Okay, now the reason why I want to say that is because like if you go first, usually in a particular setting, if you go first, you realize that like sacrifice power, like your rear guard's power is not very big or like very huge, right? So this is why you have to rely on Muji to help you to swing for like I would say like small numbers, but it's still like guardable numbers per se, right? So let's say for example when Grand Dogma is like, let's say Grand Dogma is your first grade 3, right? And she swings and she gets a 10k, like then this Muji gets a 10k, so it's like going to swing for like 20k and whatnot. So if you imagine, so like say if I don't have any power at all, like if I don't have any boosters at all for like in general, a 20k is already like a 10k to guard or 15k to guard, right? And let's say if I play this card, okay, if I play Patem and I play an order card during this turn, right? This is going to swing for like a 33k, which is probably a 2-hand guard. In the worst case, like of course, if the opponent is playing effect front, a normal 28k swing, let's assume this is that any other great ones, right? If it's on a 28k swing, the opponent might use a front trigger to just guard with 1 hand and then you get to energy charge 1. But why do that when you can technically play an order card? You can swing like that and swing for 33k, which 1 front trigger is definitely not enough. They can't intercept, which means that which means that you have to force another card from their hand to like guard with 2 cards, which means that you get to energy charge 2, right? So that's my justification of like trying to play like Patem, because like a 13k boosters in general is like really good already in the early game. Early game, late game whatsoever is also pretty nice, right? So that's my whole reason as to why I'm playing this card. Now for the next card I'm playing is okay, so bearing that in mind, I also have some certain alternatives that you guys can go through. Of course I'm not gonna like go through this. But let's go with clockwise, right? Yeah, let's start with clockwise first. So clockwise skill is that when this unit experiences a rear guard circle, if you have a same grade or less than your opponent's vanguard, you get to soul charge 1, and during this turn this unit plus 2k. So essentially it's a 10k attacker, 10k booster. And the second skill is that like auto rear guard drop zone. During your turn, when you have to discard 1 card from your hand, you get to energy blast 3, remove this card and choose the discarded card and add it to your hand, which is quite nice. The thing with it's okay, not because like you have the energy blast to spare. The problem I have with this card sometimes is that you don't really need to use a lot of soul in this deck unless you're playing Orients, but then again I only play 2 Orients. That's one thing for sure. the 10k boost, like the 2k buff is only like happening when it's on place. So after the rest of the entire game, like, or entire turn after you call this card already, it's going to be an 8k booster, which is not going, or 8k attacker, which is not very nice. I wouldn't like to play that. So that is why I don't prefer you guys to play clockwise. But the reason why I suggest clockwise is because the energy blast tree, if let's say you use Madura skill, for example, to like say Soul Blast 1 and discard 1 card from your hand, it could be your PGs, it could be something which is very important, your key pieces. You can technically just Energy Blast Tree, remove, and just bounce back the card that you've discarded. I think that's like the one way that you can definitely do that, right? So that's one thing for sure. But aside from Madura, okay, so this is one of the few cards that can help you to discard from your hand. There's only like very few cards that you can discard from your hand. Avarice Prester is also one of the few cards that can help you to say search your deck for up to 1 sweet bait, right? So the skill is that when this unit is placed on the rearguard circle from your hand, if you did not play an order card during this turn, you discard 1, you search your deck for up to 1 normal order that does not have a Regalis piece, discard it, and the order effect gets that when this unit, when this order is played, it will go to the bot deck instead, and then if you search your deck, then you shuffle your deck, right? So that's how it goes. So in situations where, like, say you don't have Madura or something along those lines, you want to maximize your sweet bait search, Avarice Wrestler can help you to search for sweet bait, and then you can play, and then you can just play in the drop zone, and that's how it goes, right? I think there's also like some of the alternatives to it. People play this over this, or like this over this, but I feel like Madura is better, is because like you can energy plus 5 and draw 1, which is nice. This one doesn't. But then again, since like you discarded 1 to search for the order zone, which means that if there's clockwise in your rearguard or on your drop zone, you can easily just like energy plus 3 remove itself, and then you can just bounce whatever card that you discarded for this effect. I think that's also pretty good as well. And since this card has what I've mentioned earlier, sometimes when you don't have a lot of like attackers or like field control, field wipes, if like all of your Mujis are gone whatsoever, I can also suggest Falcratia. So Falcratia's skill is that like when this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater, choose 1 Dark States from your drop zone and move it into your soul, and this unit plus 5k for each of the grades with this effect. So if you shove a grade 3, it's going to be a 25k beat stake. If you shove a grade 2, it's going to be a 20k beat stake. Now bear in mind, I have to tell you, the only like grade 3, I mean, like, of course, like the grade 3s that you can shove in is because you have like grade 3s such as like the Sweet Bait and Grand Dogma, and also this one, right? But the problem is, if you shove, just bear this in mind, if you shove a Sweet Bait and you do not have another Sweet Bait in the drop zone, you are technically handicapping yourself. Like if you don't have another Sweet Bait in your hand or in the drop zone, you're technically handicapping yourself into like say playing an order. But then again, like playing order sometimes is not a consistently thing, even though I mentioned that like you can play Sweet Bait every turn, but there are also sometimes that you don't really need to play Sweet Bait because of the draw engines or whatsoever. You can technically you can technically just shove it in there, but like if you really need to Sweet Bait for the next turn, don't shove it in, right? Grand Dogma goes for the same for Grand Dogma, because since this card can only be superior rolled from the drop zone or in the hand or from the deck, if you want to move it into the soul, you have to be very careful or find any other alternatives to Soul Blast it out, which you can with Orients, which is okay. Yeah, but if you don't have any Orients on the field or whatsoever, that things that can help you to Soul Blast, don't shove Grand Dogma. The only time that I can feel like it's more acceptable to shove a grade 3 is if you have a Sacrifice Glass in your drop zone, and then you just shove it in your soul, then you can become 25k. Overall, I'm not trying to discourage you guys not to play Falcratia, but if you want to shove these two, you have to be very careful on, like, it's situational. It's very depending on what's in your hand and what's the matchups like. So you have to see what's going on. And Falcratia is not a bad option. So I would still like you can play Falcratia definitely if you do not have like Orient or Muji on your field left. So that's one thing I can suggest. Next thing is Lamina. So Lamina is also pretty nice. The skill is that like when this unit is discarded from your hand during your right phase, you get to Soul Blast one, you get to bot deck itself, and you get to draw one. So not only that you still get to draw one, but you also does not decrease your deck count, because obviously speaking, if you discard with Tishgal, you draw one, but the card just doesn't really bot deck. So if you don't want to deck out as fast as possible, you can play with Lamina and Soul Blast one. Since you don't really Soul Blast as much, I think you can spare your souls, use your souls on this one, and then just bot deck and you get to draw one. So that's one thing. But also the fun thing about this Lamina also is that you can get to counterblast one. You get to choose one card from your soul and call it to the rearguard circle. If you have, like, say, if you don't have any other good rearguards to call with. And if you did call with this effect, you get to soul charge one, which is really nice. I think I mean, you may soul charge one, but then again, if you can soul charge into some of your attackers next time or something along those lines, I think you can play Lamina. Lamina is definitely fine to play with. That's very good. Also, since you're playing a lot of like normal units this turn round, like normal orders, not normal units, sorry, you can play twin cast, which allows you to have like more defensive options, where like the first skill is that like choose one of your units that is being attacked and during this battle plus 10k. The second skill is that like you have to remove itself. You can resolve another twin cast ability where like it gets plus 5k until the end of this battle for each of your Vanguard's grade. So like say my Vanguard is grade 3, it gets a 25k power instantly, so it's like a 28k shield in that particular instance. So twin cast you can definitely play for defensive purposes. I think it's fine as well. But since you draw a lot, I think it's going to be okay. But if you find yourself not to have a lot of defensive options, I think twin cast is definitely fine. And also like say Bracing Ladder Angel. Bracing Ladder Angel is also very important on several counts. One thing for sure is that like since your rearguards are very vulnerable to control decks like Shiranui or Gandiva or Vagra or whatsoever, does Vagra Vagra is technically retired, or I mean it still cannot be retired by effects, right? So but technically speaking, like this Regalis piece helps you to be like countering any other control decks per se, while also giving your Vanguard plus 5k and allows you to draw one. So in that kind of like counter like it kind of counters those kind of like control decks, and if you are very fearful about having your cards like Muji or like your boosters being retired, which is okay. But however, do bear in mind that since after you play this one Regalis piece, you can't play any other sweet bait, and so you have to find like a very right timing or right situations where you can only play this. If you don't find playing sweet bait is more necessary, I think like playing Bracing Ladder Angel is definitely fine, right? So that's about it. And of course, this concludes my deck profile. I think that's all I can offer for you in this deck. If you have any other questions about like some of my deck builds, or if you have like if you can disagree, you can feel free to disagree with my deck list, or you can play anything else. Just do feel free to comment in the comment section down below. And of course, do hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video so far. I know it's a very long video, but I'm just trying to just come up my justification for all that. If you have anything, just hit like and subscribe, share this video, comment down in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys on the next time. This has been Professor Enoch 095 signing out. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.